There is a heightened risk of defaults on the African continent as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has led to heavier debt burdens while worsening the poverty situation and widening inequality. And now the African Development Bank has warned this latestly. Now we have our business desk editor, Nas Agbalaya, who will be shedding more light on this in terms of debts with African countries. And he's also joined by Tunji Andrews. Good morning, gentlemen, but Nas, over to you.
All right, we're yet to be joined by Tunji, but for now we have Nas. So just go ahead and break this down for us. What does this mean?
Good morning, guys. Well, first, it means that Africa could really do default. Now, look at it this way. You're owing debt to someone and you're not able to pay as at when due. That's the story of many African nations. We know that already. One nation has already defaulted. Now, the fear now is to avoid others defaulting. Now, when Akim Additional made this remark, he made reference to the lost decade. That is particularly talking about what happened in the 80s when the whole African continent tried the Structural Adjustment Program, SAP. Well, we all know what transpired then. Literally, every nation had to cut back on its spending, and truly, it was a real austere period. Right now, African continent is facing this possible return of that, say, cutting your coat according to your cloth, not size, by the way. Unfortunately, revenue has not been what it should be on the African continent. We all know what the COVID-19 pandemic has caused Africa. By and large, many nations are now trying to reinvent themselves. A principal example is Ghana, that is trying to use foreign direct investment onto Ghana, and also trying to look for innovative ways of bringing in more revenue. For instance, they want to revamp their refinery, the Tullow refinery. This is another plan ongoing. Now, Nigeria is following that plan also to reduce its reliance on importing refined petroleum products. By and large, if all these plans become reality, a good number of African nations will be able to reduce their debt burden by increasing their export quota and, of course, improving the balance of trade.
All right, Nas, this is quite a serious warning from the African Development Bank, the AFDB, but not to name names, but you really have to put it out there. Which countries are now at risk of default? Are we talking about still Kenya, or is anyone leading that pack right now?
Zimbabwe is a typical example of a country that could. It is not a fault of theirs. The sanctions which has been imposed from the Robert Mugabe era is still biting hard. All the effort which the current government is putting in place is not working because they are not able to export what they have as at when due. For instance, now Zimbabwe has a bumper harvest this season, and if they were able to export this, a good number of their debts will be able to be paid off. Now, we all know that what is happening in Zambia. The copper mines are producing not at ultimate capacity because also of COVID-19. Now, the examples are so many. And all these hints to the fact that production capacity has been reduced on the African continent. When this is improved, we'll find a different situation happening in Africa.
You're talking about countries trying to improve their economy, but we know that in spite of defaulting in the debt that in some African countries, there are more that are borrowing, even during this pandemic. What would be the long-term implication of that?
Borrowing itself is not a bad thing. The main problem here, the talking point here, is the ability to pay back. And also, when you're borrowing, are you able to negotiate to have the interest of what you can afford? These are the principal factors here. Now, a major creditor of Africa is China. And unfortunately, the discussion with China is not so transparent. Now, many nations borrow from China at different rates. And China has not come to the table to say that, yes, we will provide debt relief, unlike what the G20 has been able to do for some African nations. So it is not about the borrowing, but it's about the deal before you borrow. And also, when you borrow, use it for what will be able to generate some form of revenue later on, or will be actually cost reliant for instance, that if you build more roads or say more industrial hubs, now this in itself would pay you back directly. Now for the roads, you could have a toll pole at different points there, depending on how long the road is and how many people use the road. Now, this road, of course, will serve as a means of moving goods from point A to point B. And also, you could toll the road, where as people pay you for using this road, you can use part of this revenue coming from the road directly to pay off part of its debts.
All right. Thank you very much, Nas Agbalaya, for giving us the latest when it comes to this warning from the African Development Bank. We did hear the boss, Akiwumi, talking about African countries should be producing, vaccines and not, begging for hand-me-downs. But there'll be more on that to catch up later. But thank you very much, Nas.